The broadcast is live.
Good morning, everyone. We are here. The broadcast is live. And my guest is the fantabulous Angela Phillips that I just love so dearly. And, she asked me yesterday, what is your intention? I love how she gets me clear. She's asked me yesterday, what is your intention for this show? And it's our first show, so it's very fitting that Angela's here. And my intention, I wrote back just very simply, is to point the way in, and in that way it creates space. And I want to start out with just a little thing one of my students showed me yesterday. She's a children's yoga teacher, and it's pretty powerful because we say create space a lot of times as yoga teachers or as practitioners. And what does that actually mean? What's the significance of that? And so I just want to start out with this, and Angela and I can have a little discussion about this, but I just want to start out with what it actually means to create space. So I've got one thing here, and I'm just seeing if you can see it. So that's a phrase, and we could stare at that phrase for a really long time, and our brains are pretty smart. We could probably figure out what that is. But there's no spaces between letters or words. And it's pretty profound that when you create space, you don't even read each word. It just becomes the phrase itself. So that's what we're doing, is creating space. The first thing is about striving. And yes, can I hold it up another 10 minutes and you can maybe start to get a few word or a letter here or there? We can strain, we can strive, we can push to read that, or we can create space and read it as a phrase. So I just wanted to start everything out by that, because I just think that was really profound to me, and understanding that. And I heard another thing this week. I talked to Deanna Hansen of Black Therapy, and she said to me something so profound and powerful. And I always say those words because it's just what it is. Compression is death, and space is life. And that's what we're doing here on this program. And it's very fitting that Angela is here. Angela has been teaching yoga for many, many years. She has tons of certifications. She's like the diva of our area. She's just been offering space and beauty to so many people for so many years. I get tears in my eyes just thinking about how incredibly blessed I am to have her in my life. And she's taught me so much about space and beauty. And, I was talking to Lisa Gunshore yesterday, and she said, we were talking about, this like radical love. And radical love, I believe, is very similar or the same as that space, right? So it's this profound thing that I want to offer through this show and with my guests as we converse. The way in is easy. It doesn't have to be so challenging, and we don't have to strive to read this. We don't have to. We can come to this place right here. And, I believe our bodies are the way into this place of space. So I just, again, want to introduce Angela Phillips. I'm going to put a little banner up later to see how you can get in touch with her. There are technical difficulties as far as her internet goes. So she's at her studio right now. And I'll just continue chatting for a moment about space. And when we point the way in, space is created. So it doesn't have to be this long thing. It's a very, very quick perspective shift. And there she is on the phone. I'm going to text her to get back in, and then I'll let her in. Technical difficulties today. It's all right. So the wisdom of the body is so much the key. Here she was back in. Hello. It's so much the key to the space that's created throughout every layer in our wholeness. So Angela, do you want to introduce yourself, or do you think I did a pretty good intro there?
I think you did a beautiful intro. Thank you so much, April. And I love you. And we have a very spacious relationship. And That word space is one of my favorite words. I have quite a few favorite words, like you do. Um, but space, when there's space, there's ease. It's natural. It feels authentic. It's a beautiful word in that it also points to not just the physical form, but space mentally, space emotionally, space spiritually. So I think it's a quite potent word. And yes, yoga teachers do use it a lot. And I think it's really good to take the time to take these words that we use so frequently and make sure that we're understood. We're understood. I do teach quite a bit, and I use the word space, and I asked this group of students if they knew what I was talking about, and they had no idea. And so it's nice to sometimes pause and define, because we know what we're talking about, but it's really nice to pause and define and get everybody on the same page. So that was a really beautiful definition. Yeah.
Little illustration there. I just want to say hi to Karen. Thanks for joining and commenting on the side. And, any questions, we just love to have conversation and interact here. Angela and I have been journeying together for, I guess, a little over a decade. I taught at her studio for, 7, 8 years or more, maybe. And we just have kind of I would say, evolved together in a way. And what I've noticed is that, we move together, and something that doesn't work or is inefficient or, might not necessarily be the way things are flowing for us, we just let it go. And then we have a discussion together, and usually we're very similarly on the same page. And then we move into this more effective, and I don't even know a good word here, but more efficient. What is it?
Spacious,
fluid, right? Yeah. So, just tell us a little bit about where you are right now with your teaching, and, if you'd like to talk about techniques for spaciousness or, whatever comes to mind, and we'll have a little conversation around that, because you and I do very similar things.
Well, I think one of the things that's interesting is I call myself a yoga teacher, right? So it's under the umbrella of yoga, but where I have really evolved and what's been revealed to me when we are speaking primarily asana, everything's asana. Anything can be asana. Any kind of mindful movement can be considered asana. And I think that it is that piece that we bring into it of being present with indirect experience, which a lot of times when people exercise, they're not necessarily trained to bring their mind into the practice. And so why can't working out with weights be asana practice if your intention is to be really present with the breath, to be really mindful with the movement? And so I've evolved in including so many different ways of moving, and I still call it yoga, and I sometimes get a little frustrated with the word yoga, because a lot of people hear yoga and they think asana, and yoga is so much more than just asana. So where I've definitely evolved is asana is inclusive of really any kind of mindful movement. And I think that at this stage, I have been teaching for over 25 years. I'm still very passionate as a teacher. Movement is absolutely one of the limbs of yoga, but I'm very interested in bringing forth more of the other limbs, more of the other practices that are beyond necessarily the physical body. What are we thinking? How are we breathing? Where can we become more spacious mentally? Where can we become more spacious physically? Where can we become more spacious emotionally? So, and the students are ready for that. And I think your students are too, April. So yeah. I think that as we evolve, I'm never that far ahead of my students.
Right.
Just take them with me. Look, I'm now getting turned on to block therapy like you are, right? Well, come on, students, come with us, enjoy this practice with us. So I always think I'm no further ahead. I'm maybe one little step ahead of my students because I like to do things with others. And so come on.
I absolutely agree. And asana, as in posture, or traditional word for posture, is Angela is just saying that anything is asana, anything is posture if we're doing it in a yoga sort of way. And the word yoga itself means to yoke or union, and that's what it is. So that when we say yoga, we're not talking about necessarily a what?
Postures. We're not talking about just postures.
We're talking about the whole self. It's about union of self. And I think that's profound. And going back to what you're talking about with your students, I don't even know the word to use, but I don't even use the word students that much anymore. I kind of call them co-creators because, and I was telling a group of my people this yesterday, I got this from somebody in my class, and I said, all the trainings I've taken, all the thousands of hours of trainings I've taken, my biggest teacher is my own body and direct experience with others around me. Like you and I, Angela, Angela and I, whether we're on the phone or whether we're at each other's houses or whether we're at the studio, it always evolves into somebody looking at somebody's posture and legs and collarbones or wherever it goes. And it's just so helpful. And it's this spacious mirror, and I think that's what Angela and I are definitely that for each other. And I hope you would agree with me. And I think that's what we can be called to be for others in our lives. Like, we don't have to get immediately, if Angela's like, oh, that shoulder's higher than the other, what's going on there? I don't go, Angela, why are you talking about me that way? I go, oh, thanks for the insight. Thanks for the eyes on me that I don't have. I can look in a mirror all I want, but I can't see my whole self. So that mirror of community is very spacious. And, Angela and I are constantly working with refining our language together, refining what works and just letting go of what doesn't work, and just refining our writing and how we come across and our own bodies. And I think the refining also includes this kind of potent, of course, space. Mm-hmm. And I think another thing is, and maybe you can speak to this, I think giving ourselves, and this is something that I've really I've really learned from you because you model this. Giving yourself and others permission is a beautiful type of spaciousness.
Very much so. And, April, I love what you said about you're not really calling them your students anymore. I've always felt that, in that we are in an environment learning from one another. And, it appears that there's a teacher and there's the students, but the truth is it is a communal experience where we're learning from one another. I mean, my students have been some of my most amazing teachers. And I like you, I'm not exactly sure what I'm going to call them right now, but these people, yeah. These students. So I think that's part of what we're also doing. I take yoga classes from time to time, and I'm so aware that every word a yoga teacher says when you're in that environment is impactful. And it's made me become far more mindful. Well, what am I saying and what does that really mean? And for instance, let's open our joints. Well, what does that mean? What does that mean? And so I learned so much from others in that worked or that didn't work, or let's go for a little bit more clarity here about what we are saying. So language, and I know you know so much about language, and I've learned a lot about language from you, is how are we disseminating the wisdom? How is that wisdom coming forth? And I think that ultimately it comes forth vibrationally. And, in the environment in which we teach, we use the spoken word. And there's just, I think that, I love the question before you open your mouth and words come out.
Mm.
Is it necessary? Is it true?
Mm.
Is it kind? And does it improve upon the silence? And so, we were talking a little earlier about how have we evolved. There doesn't have to be any words at all. It's okay for there to be spacious silence, and I love that. And I feel that one of the things that I offer more and more to students is quiet, that spacious silence, because I don't really know where else globally, one is finding that. So I feel that it's an important thing to remind people of, that in order to really be whole, we want to be deliberate about experiencing spacious silence. We
Yeah.
want
Say
attune.
that again.
Yeah,
That's, yeah. In order to be whole, we want to be deliberate about experiencing spacious silence.
I
And
mean, I
this
really, yes.
that's it. And this is where we, as experiencers of that, can give permission to others who have that innately, to everyone who has that innately. Everyone has it. I know that you've had this and I've had this so often. We've talked about it. You're a yoga therapist, you're a yoga teacher. Oh, I can't do yoga. I'm not flexible. I can't meditate. And can you speak to that? Because you and I have had so many conversations about this. And this is about permission. This is about the space of permission.
Well, one of the words that I love that I learned from you is the word potential. Is that there is always the capacity to reach our potential. And that is our birthright,
Yeah.
to be in touch, to be whole, to experience body, mind, and spirit, to really find a beautiful balance between all of that. And, when somebody says, I can't do yoga, well, first of all, I think they're referring to the postures of yoga. And the truth is, everybody, even someone who is paralyzed, can do yoga, because if you can breathe, you can do yoga. So it's more about the mindfulness. And yes, if you're coming to a traditional hatha yoga class, even if you can't touch your toes, which I hear that so much, I can't touch my toes. So it's okay. What can you touch? All right, you can touch your thighs. Great. It's a beginning. And there's always potential for growth. There's always potential to become a little more flexible. There's always potential to become a little stronger. There's always the potential to become more mindful. It's a practice. So and there's nowhere to get, right?
Yes.
Practice, it's a way of living. And, I just remind students now, somebody who comes up to me and I can tell they're absolutely not interested, I've also learned to just,
Me too.
okay, that's fine. But somebody who truly is like, "Oh, I can't do that." I'm like, "Yeah, you really can." Now, it is important, and you know this, that you find the right teacher for you and the right style of you. There's a personality to the practice, and that you align with the right personality of the practice for you. So somebody who's just so darn stiff. I mean, they might go to an Ashtanga class, but they may be better off starting off with something a little different than that. And if that's what they want to do, then perhaps evolve into that. But, we can all benefit. And this is why I think yoga is still around after these many, many, many thousands of years, is because it's still relevant and it is a practice that really uplifts and supports humanity.
Mm.
And in that, it supports the planet because as we become more whole and we become more yoked, yoga, it changes how we live, the lens in which we view the spider in the room. You know, it changes our understanding of who we are and the relationship we have, not only with one another, but with all sentient beings, with the great mother herself. And so I like yoga for all the different reasons that this practice, it just points to everything. It really does. And so if somebody's like, no, I can't do yoga, I know they're just speaking to the postures. And I'm like, well, if we're talking about postures, you actually can. And if for whatever reason you absolutely cannot do the postures, the vastness of yoga isn't in that limb anyway.
Exactly. Yeah. If somebody tells me they can't do yoga, and it's not just a passing comment, like you say, I say, do you have a body? Do you have a body? You look like you have a body to me. Because the yoga community and I think we're coming a little out of this, and you and I have talked about this so often, but the people that were drawn at first to yoga, and yoga was created, and correct me if I'm wrong here, but the yoga we know was created for teenage boys in India. And then we're forcing our way as women or older men or whatever into these poses. And the thing is here we go again. So touch your thighs. Don't touch your dang toes. Right. This is touching your toes. That's you touching your toes. Why bother? Our bodies open up to us. The layers that are so interesting to understand. And you work this way too, I know, Angela. And we've worked this way a lot together because we've been training on certain things together. But the first thing I ever do before I do anything else is change the state of my co-creators or students' nervous systems. Because what you're doing is you're peeling off a layer of tension from the musculoskeletal system immediately. If you're working, and this is what Angela was talking about earlier with weights, if you're working and you're just doing weights, you might not be that effective. If you're working in weights, and I teach a weight class on Wednesdays actually, and online, and if you're working in weights, I always get everybody into the parasympathetic state. The rest, digest, nourish, heal, doing weights, because I'm peeling off that layer of tension that naturally melts away when we go into a parasympathetic state. So we're already not having to handle that extra tension. And then we can go into all these other systems, and I think that understanding that is a really, it's a way in. It's a spacious way in. It's not about touching your toes. It's about training your nervous system. It's about understanding, I believe, that we don't even know, and this was me. I didn't even know I was a slave to my nervous system, operating in fight and flight, freeze, appease all the time. And of course you're stiff. There's adrenal fatigue. There's all these things going on. And yet when you come into a skillful class, like Angela teaches, you're going to have an absolutely different experience because you already are that. That's what Angela was saying a bit ago. You already are that. You possess the strength. Our fascia clings to our bones at a tensile weight of 2,000 pounds per square inch. How is that not strong? When we access our furnace, our dantian, our core, our center, our whole body changes shape. When we place our tongue correctly, our whole body changes shape. We have the strength, and now we can remember how to use it and access how to use it. And I know that's how you've been working too, Angela. And I'm sure some of those things like that I just said made you, spin off into other things. So what do you think?
Well, I mean, and then of course the way we breathe, right? And the breath ultimately reveals where we are mentally, emotionally, physically. I mean, the breath, I had a student today and she was in Sleeping Swan. It was a yin class. And Sleeping Swan, for some of you who might not know, that is like a pigeon pose. And she made this beautiful connection of her knee was mushing into the ground and the back extended leg. And her breath was not smooth and free and spacious. And finally, she said, my knee is really hurting and it's affecting my breath. Well, what it was really doing was affecting her nervous system, and the breath was revealing that. So I just said, the breath never lies. I propped her thigh so her knee was just hovering. There was no pressure on her knee at all. And her breath changed. And I was like, Amy, that was a powerful demonstration for you to see the connection, all parts of self. And it was really cool. It was really cool. So yeah, I think the breath is that piece as well, that it's always with us. How am I breathing? So I'm walking around with a couple of mantras right now, right? And a mantra, I love one of the definitions of mantra, mentally muttering. What are you mentally muttering to yourself?
I love it.
Right? I mean, and look, some of that mental muttering can be really not helpful. So one thing I mentally mutter, how am I breathing? Just asking the question moves us into a more balanced nervous system, because asking the question without influencing the breath will naturally change. And it's always wanting to change towards its more natural rhythm. It's more stable, easeful rhythm. The other question that I find, the other muttering I've got going on a lot in my mind right now, because, COVID's been challenging in many ways, and my business model changed significantly. But is this nourishing or is this depleting?
Mm-hmm.
So is this nourishing? I love, oh, there's, it's kind of fun to see people commenting. Keep your comments. I love it. Hey.
Hey, Lisa. How's it going? It's fun. I know.
Yeah, your breath is your guide. So Lisa just added a comment. She said, I love that, Angela. As Deanna Hansen says, your breath is your guide. Yes, your breath is your everything. Your breath is God, right? So pay attention to your breath. So I walk around with that muttering, and I walk around with, is this nourishing or is this depleting? And, some aspects of life we have to participate in and they may be depleting. But when we have choice, when we are like, is this group of people depleting or nourishing? Is this food depleting or nourishing? Is how I'm spending my free time nourishing me? And, I'm not even going to define what nourishment or depletion is, because it can change depending on where you're at. And because I know you love potato chips, April.
I do.
Sometimes potato chips is nourishing because it's like, oh my God, you are so present with that. It is so deeply satisfying. And sometimes eating those potato chips is not nourishing. It's depleting. So, it's not about defining what those words mean, but we know what they mean on a very deep level when we're with that question soulfully. So, yeah.
I love that. I mean, that's so. I always like to hear what mantras you have going on. It used to be the stillness, right? Be still and know. That was one of them. That, which is of course still going. I mean, that one doesn't ever stop, and none of these ever stop. They're just, I love that, mental mutterings. You can change really so much about your whole, speaking unhelpfully to yourself or negatively or self whatever, deprecation, by just inserting these other things. How's my breath? And, maybe like an anchor here, which your breath is your anchor, is when you start to mentally mutter against yourself. Because I think that that's really an important thing to point out, is that mental muttering, a mantra, can also be negative.
Mm-hmm.
Right? And I think that that is...
I'm fat.
The one that came to me.
Right?
Yeah.
I mean,
I'm not enough, right? It's
I studied with Donna Farhi. She's actually who I did my first teacher training with, and this was decades ago. And I remember something she said. If those mental mutterings that we just are on a loop within ourselves, if anybody spoke to us that way, we would not be their friend. But we do that to ourselves. And so it's quite powerful to really examine, what is the quality of my mind right now? What am I thinking? So it influences, like you said earlier, everything about us. How am I talking to myself? What is my mental muttering? So I'm just, really, how am I breathing? Is this nourishing? Is this depleting? I do run around and do mentally mutter things that are not beneficial to me. And when I catch myself doing that, and here's where it becomes either a catch-22, oh, look at what I'm doing. Then you judge that, and then you're just caught up in the loop again.
Right.
I'm able to pull back a bit and to notice that, to just be like, first of all, is it true? Is it kind? Is it necessary? Does it improve it? No, even though it's an internal like chat. There's just so much about examining what's happening internally that has the potential to really create transformation. And so whatever it is that we notice about ourselves, whatever self-talk we've got going on, when we notice that it's kind of on that negative side, to be very mindful of not judging that, but there's your opportunity to return to something that's more helpful.
Yes.
So
I used that far better than I was saying that. But yes, I mean, I think that it's where the practice shows up. Your anchor becomes, oh, I'm mentally muttering negative self-talk. I can change this. I don't have to go into more mental self-talk. I can go in and say, well, get curious. Curiosity is the antidote to judgment, because it takes us into a different mind space. It goes, I was telling Lisa this yesterday. Our nervous system, we hear a lot about how, and the spiritual community does this a lot. Like, we think that when we start to live more gracefully, that we shouldn't be sad or fearful or judgmental or all this. It's just simply not true, because our bodies have a nervous system. Our fight or flight, which is the sympathetic state, is our judger. And it has to be. It has to help us slam on the brakes. It has to help us feel like exactly like Angela was saying earlier. Is this, and are these potato chips nourishing to me right now, or are they depleting? Am I going to choose a healthy, or am I going to choose something, not healthy? Our nervous system is there, or our sympathetic is there to judge. It is there to judge. We don't want that to go away. What we want to realize is that we don't have to live there. And I think that's the profound teaching, is that we can make those judgments that are yes and no, black and white. And then we also have the ability to move into a parasympathetic state where the silence exists for every single person that is alive. If they train themselves, that parasympathetic state becomes more and more and more available. And that's where the myriad choices open up. You can go whatever way you want to go, you know, and you're gonna be in the flow. You're gonna be in the place that you're meant to be. And so we can decide, and we don't have to be enslaved to the nervous system. And this is what we see in our politics, and we see it in our, you know, we even see it in our spiritual communities, that we think like, well, we can't, you know, we can't judge, but we're judging, right? It goes back to this. It goes back to that, right? It all goes back to that. That's the mental self-talk, which is fine. We can sit and strive and we can say, what does this say? Ha, ha, ha. Or we can just change the space. Angela, go ahead.
Well, I love what you said. Changing the space can, you know, I mean, the witness, right? We become aware that we are doing that. We cultivate a relationship with that judger or that part of ourself. It's not right or wrong. It just is. And so that sense of curiosity, you know, and some of that might be true, right? But it's how we experience it and how the attitude behind or the spirit behind the words. It's really it's the spirit behind the words, whatever it is that is flowing through. But yoga has been such a beautiful, it trains us so beautifully to witness, to become aware and to witness. And if you're judging, to witness judging, and to not make judging wrong, to not judge judging, like you said. And in that, there's so much space, there's so much healing, there's so much natural transformation, because I can't make myself not judge anymore. I can't make myself do really anything, right? It is through kind attending and this awakened awareness that we evolve. I can't make myself do it. So I just notice what is. And the attitude, the kindness that we bring in, because, you know, awareness has another wing to it, and it's kindness. We can be aware in a very judgmental way. So, you know, I love all the Buddhist teachings that are so available right now about loving kindness and bringing, you know, kindly notice, witness with kindness. So that's a very important piece as we go in, that we're not going in to make ourselves wrong or right, but we're going in to see what's there. And that, you know, there is no wrong or right. There really isn't.
I agree.
What is?
And it is what it's what is. And it's getting, and you know, I think the practice, whatever that practice is, I mean, you can walk outside and look at a tree. That's yoga. You can put your hands on a counter and bend forward. You know, you can cut vegetables. You can look at the beauty of your cucumber and the juiciness and the colors of the green and that cut vegetables and breathe. That's yoga. And that's what Angela was saying earlier. I think that the word space is such an umbrella word, and it's, you know, coming to me now that we're having this discussion. Kindness is space as well. Kindness is deep space. Compassion is space. You can't force yourself to have kindness or compassion, or that's, again, it's like judging. I mean, it's this very constricted, very compressed space, or no space at all without the space. And you know, I think space translates into many channels. And I think kindness is one, awareness is obviously one, but you know, the constriction is basically, and you can speak to this, but you know, some yoga philosophy says that our only sin, and I'm using the word sin, you can come up with a better word than that yourself, is ignorance, right? It's ignorance. And what is ignorance? It's a shutdown of space. It's a constriction. And, we run into with ourselves willful ignorance. I don't want to see that. No, I don't want to see that. And that's an absolute shutdown and constriction. So what I'm always looking at in my life, and this is Angela asking the questions throughout the day, same with me. I'm always looking at, where am I resisting and where am I shutting down? Because that's going to show me exactly where the richness and the juiciness is. Where is that like luminous shadow hiding out, Like, it could be the interaction with the person at the grocery store. It could be somebody that took my spot. It could be so many things that we have the opportunity to either shut down and constrict or move into spaciousness. We have that choice to create the space. Even if the other person isn't creating space, it doesn't matter. If you both shut down, there's no space. If one creates space and one doesn't, there's still space, right?
I think we're talking about, yes, relationship.
Yeah.
And relationship to ourselves. So, it can be as easy as, am I in my heart or am I not in my heart? And because for most of us and most of us listening, we have a practice. This is not new. We've had all the different practices that we've had, all the different meditation techniques that we know, and all the things that we do to help us remember and help us stay in that spacious heart. So, it's funny that you talked about the grocery store. I get emotional hangovers now. If I shut down, and for instance, if I'm so busy and I'm so caught up and I don't have, even if it's just a moment of gracious exchange with somebody who's helping me, somebody who's taking my groceries and checking me out, and I just am not tuned in, typically later in the day, that comes back to show me where I, could improve a little bit. And it doesn't come up and show me in a judgmental way. It's like letting life teach us. Where am I really not being present? And where am I being present? So, I tend to learn a lot with what isn't going well. And life, and I really appreciate this about my life and where I'm at now. It shows me pretty quickly. Where I didn't live up to what I know and to my potential, and and in the space of the heart. And I appreciate that. I really do, because it's like, okay, all right. I am here. I feel I am here to serve. I want to serve. And, if I'm not tuned in when I am in relationship with another person, even if it's the bagger at the grocery store, that right there is an opportunity for a beautiful exchange with another human being. Yeah. So, I think that we become more and more aware through these practices, and I'm very appreciative of that.
I think you brought up such an easy, beautiful example. And I agree. I think, I've been noticing that what my practice has done for me, and what my integration, if that's a good word. Just remembering who I am. I am strong. I am, I don't have to say that and not mean it. I know I am, because of what I'm remembering. And that's what it is, the path of remembering. And I think the further I walk down this path, if it is the path, if there's really any such thing as progress, because we already are all of that, right? But, the deeper I dive in, the more I realize exactly what you said. processing, showing that to me, and I love that you call it emotional hangover, because that's exactly, I mean, that's a beautiful description of that. And then I'm shown it, whatever the thing is, and then look at it with graciousness and gentleness with myself, and then process it. It's not, as Pema Chodron says, and you and I love this, it's no big deal, but it really matters.
Right. Boy, do I say that a lot. It's no big deal. It matters, right?
Yeah.
Because life is our great fleshing out of the practices, right? I could go off and be alone and think I'm doing really well, when it's when I come into relationship with others and when I'm living my life that I get to see, where am I really? So yeah, it's
And again, there's always that beautiful opportunity for space. And you and I have had, I mean, you and I are together and we go like kind of cosmic, but you know, I think we remind each other, and you can speak to this too, how to be present. I mean, we can have a cup of tea together and we can be just, oh my gosh, do you taste the so-and-so? And look at the color of this cup and look at the sparkle of this. And, you know, because we're so present with what we're doing. And Angela is one of the most elegant, beautiful cooks that I know. And I have been a recipient for a decade of her incredible graciousness and hospitality. And, you know, she's just taught me so much about everything being meaningful. Like I had these beautiful plates from, you know, and she's like, just use them every day. And I'm like, every day? You know, we have this idea from the generations ahead that we only bring these things out for Thanksgiving, or we only bring these things out for Christmas, or whatever holiday you celebrate. Angela taught me, no, every day is meaningful. Every meal means the same. It's being present. And that's yoga too. And I mean, I appreciate that so much about you, Angela, that you've been my teacher in presence and beauty, not only on the mat after many years, after just these incredibly elegant, and can't language this well, but it's these elegant, spacious offerings on the mat. And then there's this elegant, spacious offerings off the mat. It's just this beautiful life intertwined with this refining, spacious awareness.
Thank you, April. You know, beauty, I think, is something that helps us live more joyfully, with more contentment. And, you know, we all have different definitions of beauty, but yeah, make your life beautiful. And I'm just speaking to the everyday, like, life stuff, like how you prepare your meals, the color of your meals, the way you set the table. Like I can't imagine eating without lighting a candle. It just, I don't know why, but it just is part of the experience of, yeah, let's make it pretty. If we're going to do it, let's just do it. Let's do it to the best of our ability. Let's do it with what we have. There's nothing too good. What are we saving it for? Because we never know, right? We never know. This could be your last meal. This could be your last yoga practice. Bring all of yourself. And of course, I have not mastered this. I am like everybody else, this is the practice. But let's bring more and more of ourselves fully into whatever experience it is we're having. Some of them are pleasant, some of them are unpleasant, you know, as the great ones say. Oh, well, we're just present. And in that way, I think we really foster a life that's well lived. So we're not stuffing anything down. We don't have all this garbage that we're carrying, right? And I did carry a lot of garbage for a long time. And that it just, through the primarily yoga, through the practice of yoga, so much has shifted. And I feel like I have this opportunity regularly to clean up and clear out and
Yeah.
be fresh again, right?
Mm.
Be fresh again. And I feel that every breath offers that, right? Okay, here we go again. Didn't do so well there. Here we go again. Fresh start again and again and again. And we may think it's an inhale, it might be an exhale, it doesn't matter, but the breath right there, fresh start. I love the more Eastern way of looking at the breath, that the cycle begins on an emptying out, on a letting go, not a taking in, but a real letting go. And so,
And that's how we've been starting to teach anyway, because the lymph system and the vascular system is that as well. You can take all the supplements in the world, and if it's not getting to your cells, it's not doing anything. You can eat so healthy, you can drink all the water, but it's our delivery system, it's our fluid channels, and we've got to clear out the lymph system before the fresh, oxygenated nutrient can move into the cells. And there's not space for the new freshness to get in until the old stuff's moved out. And I know that there's so much to talk about, so maybe you'll just have to come back on very soon or whatever. But I know that you and I have been really diving into lymph and vascular, and we've started to teach not only getting into the nervous system, but what I teach every day is the nervous system. And then I do some type of lymph, lymph detoxification thing. And I know you tell your students to jump up and down, or bounce up and down for a minute every morning. I say that too. I've got everybody hitting their lung, the blood flow to their lungs. And we have all these things that we do now, because we don't go straight to the musculoskeletal system anymore, because that's not where it works. It doesn't work there. And that's why I think so many people really bringing this full circle, and you can speak to this. I think that's why so many people have tried yoga and not found healing, but actually found more injury. Because I think that traditional, as we know it in the West, yoga goes straight for the musculoskeletal system, whereas we are learning and taking in a whole new way of doing this.
yeah. And, I love, April and I study a lot together, and we're studying with a particular teacher right now, actually a few of them.
Yeah.
And we share that, and it's really helpful. So yeah, that emptying out. And I think what you said about the musculoskeletal system, so the hierarchy of the body, that's really low on the hierarchy.
It's
So
like the last.
it's like one of the last systems that we affect that has an overall effect, right? And so if we can work in these more primary places, and certainly the lymphatic system and the fluid systems of the body, and it's easy to do. And so this is where, we started the conversation off with, yeah, we're not really that traditional in our teaching anymore, in that anything can be posture, anything can be helpful to the body. And so, yeah, we're doing lymphatic cleansing in my class. We're jumping up and down. We're doing all kinds of things that, I didn't do a year ago, but I'm doing now. And I think it just makes space for whatever comes after that, whatever more traditional postures we might be doing, more effective. It just makes it more effective. There's space for that penetration of the work. So it's fun. It's fun. And, April, you acknowledge me so deeply, but let me acknowledge you, because you are, you, you push me a little bit in a way of studying and taking these workshops and growing in a way that is really helpful. It's helpful to me personally, and because I personally am having the experiences and learning about the lymph and learning about blocking and learning about all these things, it translates into, because right, we can only teach from our own experience. It translates, and the benefit is far beyond, what you've taught me, and then I experience it, and then I teach others, and then that ripple effect.
Mm.
Oh, you've been very good for me.
Oh,
Yeah,
well, you
you've
did that for
you've
me.
really, I mean, you're one of the smartest girls I know, and I just appreciate that. It's an attribute I hold in very high esteem, and you've helped me along, and I appreciate that. And even something like this format, I don't, I don't do this. Why would I do this? And it's just so beautiful to be encouraged to grow and to expand and in so many different directions.
Mm.
And you live with a lot of beauty too, April. So I didn't teach you that. I mean, you already had that. That's why you responded so well, right? So
You
we
give
all,
me a lot of beautiful tips and tricks, though. I mean, just like a blossoming awareness.
yeah. So isn't that
Which
nice?
I know. I just love it. Laura's hot here. Hi, Laura. Love you. I'm going to see if I can banner our websites across. We're going to try it. Ah, look at it. Amazing.
Wow, April.
I
See what I was telling you, everyone. She's so smart.
I love it. Well, thank you, Angela. I know. So, we've got a few minutes left. If anybody has any questions or comments, this will go on a recording so you can send it out. And, this is what, and Angela said, I love how we get clear together. Angela and I get clear together a lot. Like, this is what we do together. We just get clear and we just make space. And I just appreciate the question that, she sent me text yesterday. And I already mentioned this, but I think it's worth mentioning again, especially because you just spoke to this, is what is your intention for this show? And it got me really clear. And simply put, the intention for the show is to point the way in. And when we point the way in, me and my guests, or me and Angela, when we point the way in, the space is created. It's a 1 + 1 = 2 thing. You don't have to get the way pointed in and then create space. It's like a perspective shift. And those aha moments are really what we're looking for. And Angela and I look for those so often and are open. And I think that's the thing that I want to say here is that to make the intention and to make the commitment to want to see is the first step. And it's really the only step. And you'll be taken, at least for me and myself. I remember writing an intention in my journal probably 10 years ago. And the intention was to see, to hear, and to know. And it was really funny because, and I didn't know I was going to bring this up, but about a month ago, I was looking back through that, and I got this voice in my head when I saw that, and it was this beautiful, heart voice, like the thing, and it was like, you've done that. This has happened. You're done with asking about that anymore because you do it now very automatically, not as an autopilot, but the flow moves me into that now. But I had to set the intention to want to see and want to hear and want to know. Like, I had to set that intention. What I was asking was, show me it within myself. Show me what has me stuck. Show me what has me stuck in my body. Show me what has me stuck in this relationship or that relationship, or how I respond to this, or money issues, or marriage, or children. I don't have children, but I'm just giving more examples. And that is what has happened. And setting that intention and committing to that intention is really the step, is really the blossoming step.
Wow.
Wouldn't you agree with that? It's about awareness.
It always comes back to that, right? To wake up now, again and again and again. Because we do forget. And so everything's pointing to waking up.
Yeah. Well, on that note, drop the mic. Mic drop. That's like when you walk away after the best thing has been said. So say that one more time, and then we're going to, say goodbye for this chapter.
We're waking up again and again and again. Every moment has that potential. And thank you all for being here and for listening. And thank you for inviting me, April, and for pushing me once again.
Thank you for being my first guest. That's very, very profound and meaningful for me, because we really have been walking alongside each other in this journey of yoga, which is basically just the word for life. It's all yoga. So thank you, everyone. It's all yoga. Thank you, everyone. I will see you in a few weeks, and hopefully this has been, a few aha moments for you. So thank you.